Know that feeling when you've just finished mixing your best track. You're excited but uncertain of how it will translate into other audio systems, so you send it to your phone and when it starts playing, it just doesn't sound nearly as good as it did in your headphones. You kinda saw it coming, but still can't figure out how to fix it. No more worries. In this video, you're gonna learn how to fix that once forever, using a free plugin called Corellometer by Voxengo, same owner of Span. Honestly, I love this plugin so much that I could stay here for hours just looking at it as my mixes play. And even if you're not struggling with the same problem right now, stick to the end cause I'm teaching you some cool stuff today. Let's jump in. First, let me quickly guide you through the most important concept on the subject, whose name is impressively hard to say spontaneously: mono compatibility. Basically, it has something to do with the capacity of your mixes to translate well into mono audio systems, such as phone speakers, most club PAs, laptop speakers, portable Bluetooth speakers, etc. Whatever, who cares about theory, right? Alright, we've got Corellometer here already. I'll leave the download link in the description. What is this plugin? It is a 3D meter that shows correlation in y-axis against frequency in x-axis. It mathematically rates on a scale of -1 to +1, with +1 being fully mono. How well correlated your left signal is to the right signal. The closest it is to 0, the wider is your sound without having too much phasing issues. If it goes below the middle mark of 0, there will be phase cancellation when the left and right signals get summed and played back over mono systems. It may be a wide, beautiful and pleasant sound to listen to when using headphones, but will barely be heard in mono systems. And worse, it can totally ruin your mix balance. What is this phase cancellation thing, you may ask? Well, it is something really bad, trust me. Just know that you gotta keep an ear or two for big changes in level when checking your mix in mono, as well as severe changes in internal balance of each element relative to the rest of the mix. Say, the vocals versus the kick, the lead versus the vocals, the kick versus the snare, and so on. Our goal is to have our track sound in mono the same as it does in stereo. If it doesn't, you'll end up with serious problems when playing your sickest set at Tomorrowland 2026. Here's the golden rule: if it sounds solid in mono, it will only gain dimension in stereo, but not the other way around. Moving on to the solution for the struggle. Way before fixing crappy sounds you've already selected, I can stress one thing enough: you need to ensure you pick good presets and samples, or better saying, pick the ones that fit your goals, because not always you can fix a super wide sound, simply because it is meant to sound that way. It is meant to be that way. Also, you don't ever want your main elements to be so wide, be it your lead, your vocals, your kick, your bassline, core groovy elements. Usually, the wider a sound is, the more it should sit in the background of your mix, cause as it gets lost when something to mono, and it won't make that big of a difference to the whole mix context, and won't damage your main elements. It is just a background sound anyway. If you don't have much experience in stereo imaging, I recommend you run an instance of Corellometer in your master and solo every single sound of your mix and check if it is as wide or as mono as you want it to be. But remember, if you're gonna make changes listening to it soloed, be careful to not mess with the whole balance of your mix. You need a clear goal in choosing sounds. Pick presets that serve that purpose from the start. For example, when layering that big fat progressive house lead, pick both wide and narrow sounds to get the best of the two worlds. I oftentimes let things such as pads, piano layers, reverb and delay buses, and other layers of main elements go very wide, even touching the area below 0 in Corellometer, because my goal with this is to achieve a fuller and wider sound in fancier systems, plus its balance will not be damaged in cheaper mono systems. You see, there's no wrong or right, you just need to know what you're doing. Speaking of wrong, let me prevent you from making the same mistake I did for too long. I used to analyze the correlation of my mixes by looking at this meter built in Spain right here. The matter with this little guy here is that it displays the overall correlation of your mix, not specific frequency areas, and once sub-frequencies have more energy than the higher ones, and also most samples and basses presets are mono friendly, this meter will almost always show a correlation level above 0. 0. So I used to think my mixes were always mono compatible, when they were actually not. Also, it's worth mentioning that using effects like Haas delay, chorus, stereo enhancers, or mid-side widening can cause to any kind of sound. Phase cancellation when summed to mono, weak bass response can cause important elements to disappear such as vocals or snares, and the list goes on. But remember, these effects are especially dangerous in the low mids and bass area, where mono compatibility is most important. Though later in this video I'm gonna show you how I've widened a mid-bass layer with mid-side EQing to give it more dimension. Stick around. Let's see what Corellometer has to say about this track I have right here. By the way, this is my remake of Right Away by Avicii, 2017 version. I have a video about it on my channel. Gonna leave the video in the card and the free download link to this FLP in the description. So right here I have this instance of Corellometer running in the chords bus, and it's reading 2 piano layers. Check it out. Yeah, we can work this out. There are some ways of fixing this issue. First up is the method that I use the most, though it's actually not the most important one, as you'll see later. So we can try and squash these layers into a less wide sound, and I say try because sometimes it can turn the sound into crap. As I said before, some presets are simply made to sound very wide and there's nothing you can do about it. For this method I like using MSED, another free plugin by my boys at Voxengo, shout out to them. It is basically MSCD is a professional audio encoder, decoder, AAX audio unit, and VST plugin for mid-side processing, which is able to encode the splitting chemistry. It has 2 knobs right here. One works on the mid gain, the other on the side gain. You can use it combined with Corellometer, and you've got yourself a free professional combo to mix like a pro. Have a look. So I basically removed a few dBs from the side and added some to the mid in each piano layer individually, based on its necessities. Now let me A/B the before and after. Listen carefully to the pianos, there's a subtle difference in volume. Now, if this sound you're fixing has different problematic frequencies across the spectrum, then you probably need to fix those frequency areas one by one. So you can use tools like Pro Q3 and shape the sound with mid-side EQing, and Ozone Imager, like what I've done with this mid-bass layer, to make it wider in the higher frequencies. I actually used MSCD, Pro Q3 and Ozone Imager all together in the same layer. Other options to fix this issue are use it as a background thing instead of lead sound. Now this is the most important one. Go back to sound selection and choose a sound that has a similar vibe but is more mono friendly. Remember, I can't stress this enough. Last but not least, you can change the voicing, the tune and stereo settings of the preset inside the plugin. A big trick here is to set the number of voices to an odd number, because it forces the plugin to leave one voice in the center as the rest is spread out. Notice that the more voices you add, the more voices are spread out left and right, while only one is still in the middle in an odd number of voicing. So in this case, you gotta mess with the stereo setting to bring those voices more to the middle, or lower the detune, which is the option that decides how much the voices are spread out. Sound design is fun, isn't it? Once Corello Meter shows you everything's above 0, you don't even need to check the mix in mono in order to know that it will translate better into mono systems. But I do recommend checking it in mono anyway and always. So to recap, most listeners out there listen to music through mono systems like smartphone speakers, TV, laptop, so no matter what genre you produce for, always keep mono compatibility in mind when mixing your track. Keep an ear to massive volume changes and tonal imbalance when checking your mix in mono. These are the biggest red flags. If it sounds solid in mono, it will only gain dimension in stereo, but not the other way around. Sound selection, I can't stress it's important enough. I've neglected it in the past and I don't want you to do so. Keep your main elements in the center of your mix, always. Leave the white character to background and atmospheric sounds. But now, let me tell you the biggest secret I left to the end of this video. See these buttons right here? Smash these buttons and level up your music production by 3%. Scientifically proven. Trust me. Trust science. Come on. Do it.